Creating a good orchestral template can be extremely daunting, but I just want you to think of it as a funnel of sound. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If we're just meeting for the first time, my name is Robert Rodriguez and I'm a composer for film and any other media. In today's video, I really just wanted to give an overview of what my 2021 orchestral template looks like. Pretty much the point of this video is I want to give you an understanding of where you're going to end up after the building process. I'm kind of hoping that this will be a first video in an upcoming series where we kind of break down the orchestral template and go step by step on how you can build your own and where you can kind of tweak something. Just a few years ago, it was pretty common to have an orchestral template or any kind of template, and essentially run your samples off of a second computer. Some people even have a third computer, and your main laptop computer, whatever it is, really just ran your DAW, and in this case, Logic. And those other computers hosted all of those samples that you were gonna use. This kind of allows you to take any load off of your main computer running the software. However, if you're not ready to make that kind of investment, I've been doing this for a few years and I still don't necessarily want to get a second computer just to host my samples, then being resourceful with how you build your template is definitely the way to go. You can probably use this kind of setup on your desktop or a laptop if you're on the go. So I've actually purchased the Clean My Mac app as well as the Memory Clean app to kind of monitor my CPU usage and my RAM. There are other apps out there, but these are just the ones I use. Plus, outside of music, they're just great to maintain your computer. So just to kind of show you, up here I have the app running. This is Clean My Mac. So it kind of shows how much storage I have in the computer itself. This is the memory. I have a 32 gig computer. We'll talk about that in a little bit. How much is in my garbage, how much CPU I'm using. So right now with my iShowU recording application and Logic running, I'm using about 25%. If I were to open it up, you can see that the app is pretty user-friendly, actually. It looks very nice. You can kind of scan and it'll start looking for files you can delete and what else you can close out. Like I said, it's great even if you just are looking to maintain your computer. And so I opened up Memory Clean, and this is specific to your RAM. RAM stands for Random Access Memory. It pretty much stores your application data. That way your computer can access it quickly. So I have 32 gigs of RAM here with Logic open, with my recording software open, and with Google Chrome open. It's showing 22.85 gigs. So that's 10 gigs gone already. So I just pulled up the definition of these different terms. Come on. And wired, that's what it is. The amount of memory being used by the system. The system itself needs to function, so 32 gigs might really be 28 gigs, 27 gigs, right? Because the system itself needs to operate. With an understanding of that knowledge of RAM, that the more you use and the more apps you use, the less memory you're gonna have. You have to take that into consideration as you build your template. A big orchestral template where you're just loading up as many instruments as you possibly can, that's going to deplete your resources. And if you only have 8 gigs to work with, if you only have 16 gigs to work with, that's gonna kind of determine how big or small you can make your template. So to kind of summarize the whole tech side of things, you're gonna wanna have at least 16 gigs to work with. You're not gonna use it all, but it's always good to have more than less. All right, so now I kind of want to just talk about samples and instruments that we'll be using, or if you have them already, or if you just use Logic stock sounds, you know. Pretty much, this is a 2021 template. I made it last month, beginning of January, mainly because I had my old one for a few years, and It was fine. I could have kept using it, but I started getting more and more samples over the past few years, and eventually those samples just start to build up, and my template got a little unorganized. So for me, I always just love to just start fresh. I love a new, clean template, and one that kind of incorporates everything that I have. Now, that's not to say that you need to go out and buy a whole brand new set of samples. You don't have to go out and spend a ton of money. It's probably better to fully understand the samples and instruments that you have already and just know the ins and outs like the back of your hand, as opposed to having a bunch of new instruments but not really knowing what each one does, right? Basically, use what you have. When it does come to products from Spitfire, Cinesamples, VSL, 8DO, whatever it is, you want to be smart about what you're getting. If you're just starting out, I highly recommend the East-West Composer Cloud. Pretty much it is a subscription service that gives you access to pretty much all of their libraries, and you get to pick and choose the instruments that you want to use. So you get your strings, you get your brass, you get your woodwinds, your percussion, your pianos, your harps, your choirs, whatever it is. And it's all for a relatively low cost. But what I ended up doing was I didn't want to keep spending money on a service. I wanted to eventually own my own libraries. And eventually I just built my own little orchestra that could get me running. And then that's when I ended my service. But if you're good with spending, I think it's even cheaper than when I started a few years ago. It's a little over 100, maybe 200s per the year. Meanwhile, individual libraries can cost you like $300. So pretty much there are plenty of ways for you to get started. And to kind of wrap up the samples portion of this video, overall, I like to start fresh about once a year. One, it lets me focus on the samples that I already use. And two, it lets me dive back into samples that I might have forgotten about. All right, so I opened up my main template, and I just want to show what yours could look like as a finished product. So if you look over here, I'm going to zoom in really quick. This is the main window. This is the mixer down here, and everything here are just little folders. Organization is going to be your best friend when it comes to making a template like this. So I just want to show off the general outline of this. WW MIDI means Woodwind MIDI instruments, so all of the samples that we've talked about already. I open it up and we have a bunch. We have a bunch here. Let me actually X out of the mixer. So from here down, everything blue is going to be my woodwinds. I have my legato and articulations of piccolo. I have flutes, oboes, clarinets, bassoons. It's pretty much in the order that you'll get a regular sheet of music, right? If you're looking at an orchestral score. And then at the bottom here, I have my ensemble woodwinds. So longs, your legatos, your shorts, maybe your lows, your highs. Those are just samples that I have. You might have something other than Albion. I personally like the Spitfire Audio Albion library. Let me just show you what this could sound like. So it's loading up the instruments so that the computer can call it back quickly, right? We talked about that with RAM. So we'll see. Not bad. Shorts. And the reason why I like, and you'll see this as we go through, the reason why I like templates is because I just pulled up this saved file where it's all organized and everything is done for me, and I don't have to kind of go into the instrument, right? The virtual instrument. So this is something we'll go through in depth in the upcoming series, but these are just all of the MIDI notes. The instruments that pretty much host these notes are in a different folder, so it's a bit smaller. So instead of all of those blue tracks, we only have the main instruments. So flute and piccolo. Actually, we were looking at Albion. So Albion Ensemble. This is the instrument track right here on the left, and we use Contact. I don't even have a full version of Contact, which I think my price could be a little over 200, maybe 300, but I think the full price is like $4 or something. But you can get a lot out of the free Contact player, a lot. And so this is what hosts all of your instruments, instruments that are compatible with Contact. So we saw I use Wood's High Legato. We moved on over to the Wood's High Arranged. And they're all in one instance of Contact. So like I said, this folder here just has the instruments, like Contact, like Play, like whatever. But then these are just MIDI tracks that let me just access what we just saw, right? The highs, the longs, the shorts. So those are my wins. Then we move on to brass. I have horn solos. This is brassy. This is mellow. Articulations, two horn sustains and eighths. We have, I guess I can actually make this a bit bigger, but ensemble stopped, ensemble fluttered, ensemble rips, 6 horns, 2 and 2 horns, trumpet solos, trumpet ensembles, trombone solo, bass trombone, tuba, and once again, Albion ensembles. I like to have the individual soloed instruments and then maybe an ensemble where it's just easy to sketch with. Again, this is all stuff that I'll go over in depth as we build our template in the next few videos, but this is just an overview of what I have. So this is the orchestral percussion. You'll get your basics like your timpani, your bass drum, your snare drum, your cymbals, marimba, your metals, your woods, all that kind of stuff. I like to kind of just have it ready to go whenever I need something quick. I'm not going back to Contact and searching through the different samples that I have and wondering to myself, what am I going to use? What would I like to use? And if I want to know, I just click Glockenspiel and right? And it's quick. It's in my hands. I know what it sounds like. Do I want that? Maybe not. What if I want tubular bells instead, right? Right, so I'll let that die down a little bit. But you get the idea. I can easily call these instruments without having to go into the back end of things. So I'll close this up. Next up, I have Epic Percussion. So this is mainly my Albion percussion, like Easter Island, your hypertoms, your XXL percussion, your cymbals, your gongs, swells, all that stuff. And then I also included Action Strikes, which is a different sample library. You have your ensembles, your hits, your instruments. Let's see. It's going to load up. Right? And it's just on a loop. I wonder if I can... Not so smooth, but these are all things that you can learn about with your own samples. You can look into them if you are interested in making that investment, but it kind of gives it that more epic sound. Then I have Harp. I only have the Cinesamples Harp, Cineharp, which is one of the best harps out there. I mean, for me personally, this is my concert harp, which will load it up, and I can just play and pluck. I'm not a piano player, harp player. You have your harp gliss in the instrument itself, in contact. You get to mess around with if you want it long or short, or if you want it to be a C major. That was medium, maybe? And that's long. Yeah, so I can kind of play around with these three. And then the harp 2 is the same thing. Then I have my pianos. Now, I really use Cinepiano for my sketching, right? I don't even tweak anything with it. I just like to... it just is a nice, easy-sounding piano that I love to use. Now, it also comes with classical piano, cinematic piano, and Rock Studio Grand. That is all within one Cinepiano purchase. And then if I want that ambient kind of piano, this is my Felt Grand from the Olafur Arnold's Toolkit. I don't remember. It might be the Toolkit. And it's just much more... just listen. It's just a little bit softer. It's more ambient. It sounds great, honestly. And then this is my Evolve Fun piano. What's the Dreamer? You still have that piano, but it's just a bit different. I like to have it loaded up just in case I'm looking for something new. So those are my pianos. I have some guitars. Ample acoustic guitar and Ample electric bass are free downloads if you are looking for a guitar to mess around with. Let's see. It has to load. I have a little sustain pedal down here. I think it sounds pretty good for a free sample. Same with the bass. These are my Spitfire Labs. That was another thing I wanted to just share. Labs are free instruments that Spitfire Audio gives. They just give them to you, and you can get started real quick with these free instruments. So like moon guitar tremolos. So like it sounds great, especially if it's free. So these are guitars. I have choir. I'm a big fan of the East-West Hollywood choirs. My strings are some of my biggest folders. I break it down by my solo Cinesample strings, or Cinestrings. I have Spitfire Audio, the Professional Studio, which sounds amazing, and you know, you break it down by violin 1, 2, viola, cello, and bass. And then I have a separate folder for string ensemble. This is the Olafur Arnold's chamber evolution. So not your typical studio orchestra sound. This is very, very almost icy in a way. So I have Olafur Arnold's, I have the Albion strings. And then I break it down into the different synths that I have. All right, so next up, I brought in a selection of synths. So I have bass synths, anything that is just bass line essentially. I have my leads, almost melodic in a sense. And I kind of alternate between Iris, which is isotope. And then I have Evolve, Albion again, which is Spitfire, Oliver Arnold's Composer Toolkit, and that's what I use for my leads. And then I have my pads and drones. Once again, Evolve, Iris, Albion, Oliver Arnold's. This one is probably my biggest folder for my synths. And labs, once again, Spitfire Audio Labs, free products, and you get synths, you get strings, you get pianos and weird percussion, and all of it is free for you to use. So if you want to build a template without really spending too much more money than you already did on Logic, then this is the way to go. I don't even know, this is probably number one. Amazing. It's you can't go wrong with it. Then my FX and stings and things that are kind of just atonal. Odd noise. This is a guitar womb, something rocket, something black hole, hell trumpets, end of days. So that is FX. And then I have rhythmic synths. So anything that kind of gives a rhythm. I like to have a rhythmic bass line sometimes in Iris. You can kind of just mess around with it. And rhythmic percussion. So not necessarily a synth, but it's good to just have these kinds of percussive loops. Again, Evolve, Albion, that's pretty much it. So those are all of my pretty much samples, right? Anything I want to just play, I go to one of those folders. And then I showed you before, but these are the instruments. So let's say something's going wrong with your piano sample, right? We heard it, we saw it, we had Cinepiano, classical piano, cinematic piano, and your rock grand. But let's say something just isn't working right. You can go to the instrument itself. This is like that main host, that one track that holds them all. And we go to our instrument over here in Contact. Like I said before, you can always use the free Contact player. Download it for free and you are good to go. And in the rack, I have Cinepiano, classical piano. Let me actually even show you. So I open up the folder. We're just looking at these 4 Cinepiano instruments. So that is 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I labeled them so that they match. I don't know. Let's say for some reason this was off, right? And we start playing over here and we can't hear anything. You see that it's moving, but you can't hear anything. So then it's a good idea to go into the instrument and say, oh, look, it was off the whole time. Let me turn it on and you're good to go. So I will X out of that. So these are just your instruments. Not too crazy here. I just like to keep them organized and color-coded. And then those instruments, let me actually just show you one more time on the mixer. These are the instruments. These are all going to bus to an output. Basically, like I said, a template is a funnel system. You want to get from your MIDI and funnel it out to your audio, right? These outputs are essentially linked. So you're going to say, I want this track to then link to another track, and if need be, that other track to link to another one. They're just internal cables. So I'm going to open up down here the record folder that I have, and I personally just set it up so that everything that is flute and piccolo related is going to go to this one track. And its input, let me get it close so you can see over here. The input is coming from bus 1. And what is bus 1? The output of my flutes and piccolos are coming from bus 1. Now, this is flute and piccolo long, flute and piccolo articulations, so longs versus shorts. Same goes for my horn solo articulations. The output is bus 7. So we go on over and we look at bus 7 here, and we look down, and this is my brass French horn solo. So that just mentality is the entire thing, right? Bus 1 output is going to go to a bus 1 input. And then at the end of everything here, let me actually close up this instrument folder. We have woodwinds, brass, orchestral drums. So there's a lot of recording tracks, especially because of these synths. But then notice that these all output the same way we looked at the output before. They all output to something called mix OP, mix output. And I created another track called mix OP because that is the input on this track, and it all comes out of this one track. So everything funnels from MIDI instruments, those the MIDI data and the samples funnel down to your recording tracks, right? So that way we can get them into audio format rather than data format. Think of your audio waves. And then all of those recording tracks, all those audio tracks then funnel down to one individual track, which is my mix output. So as we go through, you're going to actually see that I don't really use this mix output track in this template necessarily. What I do is I kind of cut off a template and say, this is specifically for composing. This is exactly what I want when I want to write the music, kind of figure out what I'm doing, and get those tracks to then become audio tracks. I want let's say I record a piano, right? Let's say I record this piano. I don't play, but my monitoring is off, so I can't really hear the beat or anything, but so I go here and we have our MIDI data. If I were to just send this off to somebody, but they don't have that specific piano, or they don't have anything, then it's kind of worthless, right? What I want to do then is right now I can hear it. I can hear it, that's fine. What I want to do is send it. Where are you, piano? It was one of my Cine pianos. I'm going to record. So down here is where it's going to end up as audio. And stop. So now what I'll do is I'll mute that because I don't need it anymore. And this just became an audio file. And now that can be sent out to anybody at all, and it sounds like audio, right? And you can tweak it, edit it, do whatever you need. At least it's just a universal audio file. So that's the basic of an orchestral template. But now when you do that for a whole orchestra, you're going to have not a million, but you could easily end up with 100+ tracks of just recorded audio. So like I said, this is specifically for composing. What I then do is I take these audio tracks and I have a separate template dedicated to mixing. And I can say all of these woodwinds go into the woodwind track. All of these strings can go into the string group. And that's where I can tweak it, edit it, EQ it, do whatever I need to. And remember, this is a funnel. Why am I not showing you? I'm going to just show you what I'm talking about. So now I actually transferred over to my mixing template, and what that does is it takes the audio tracks that we just recorded in the main compositional template, and now we can funnel it down even further. And I just kind of recorded the piano and a little flute track just to give you an idea. So the flute track will go into the flute group. Yeah, import that. And then we have the piano, and that'll go there. So these are the individual tracks themselves, and when you have a full orchestra, you'll add more, like more woodwinds into the woodwind group, more brass into the brass group, string into string. Press play. Great. It works. We can hear it. And now, remember what I said about inputs and outputs and busing and connecting little wires internally. Let's say, for example, the woodwind. The input is the audio track, so that's all good. The output, I have it set to go to a group. The piano, I have it set to go to another group. When we look over here, the inputs of these groups, 1 and 5, piano and woodwinds, right? So we know that they're being grouped and bussed to an appropriate track. Now, what if I had 5 different types of woodwinds? They would all funnel down into that one woodwind group. And let's say I had multiple piano tracks, they would all funnel down to that one piano group. If I had violins 1, 2, viola, cello, bass, they would all funnel down to strings, which would be group 6. I just want to show you how this all works. So I'm going to press record on that, so we can record our flute and piano. And I'll stop it there, stop recording. I'll mute these, close that up because we don't want to hear it anymore, because now they're over here. And if we were to have a bunch of woodwinds, a bunch of pianos, they would all be in this one general woodwinds track, this one general piano track. And now we can listen back. And it sounds good, love that, okay. Let's say I want some reverb. This will get into this as well. Add some reverb there. Sounds a bit more ambient now. Awesome. Let's say we want to print that. And when I say print, I mean record, right? I'm printing it out as if it's a piece of paper, but it's audio. And so this will now go to an output called woodwind level, the L, and piano level. I go to my level prints. These are essentially almost identical. The only difference is that I like to keep these as a bit lower in volume. If I'm sending it out to somebody, those are what I'm sending, right? Those are essentially my stereo mixes. If somebody needs to mix something or whatever, they can then look at woodwinds, brass, percussion, harp, piano, strings, other percussion, guitar, synth, choir. This I'm going to be messing around with. I'm going to be messing with the volumes. I'm going to be messing with the reverb and plugins. Here, everything is printed. So remember I added some reverb on here. I want to level print them. I want to mute these now. So the groups are now, we're done with that. And what's great is that the reverb or any effect that you do is now printed into this audio. So I like to have these kind of almost final prints. And this is where that mix output track that I mentioned before comes in handy. This is the final touch, right? We now record the mix output, which is over here. We're recording it. And end it there. We'll mute this because we're done with it. And we have one nice clean track right here, where we just combine everything that we did into one mix output. If we want to bounce it out, export it out as MP3, as a WAV file, WAV file. I don't think I've ever actually said that out loud. All in one clean track. And that's essentially how your orchestral template can funnel down into one piece of sound. We started off with all these different MIDI instruments, right? Then we had to transfer that over to audio files, individual audio files. You can do this all in one template, or you could separate it like I have it here. Then those audio files went into the groups. So let's say I had flutes and bassoons and clarinets and whatever. They all went to one woodwind track. Let's say I had multiple pianos, one piano track. Let's say I had a full string ensemble, one string track. And then you kind of mess with that, put some reverb, focus on the overall EQ, right? And then you print that out. I have it go into some level prints, these pink tracks here, and those all stay the same. I'm not messing with the volume. I'm not adding anything to it, really. And then those level prints funnel down into one cohesive track. This is one way to do a template. I like this way because it kind of covers all of my bases. Everything is just set up for me in a very defined way. It's organized, it makes sense to me, and it works. It works, and it's a professional way of actually recording your music. Now, I know I kind of went through a lot in one video, and that's why I really want to focus on the upcoming series of just breaking every single thing down. But it's just so easy to get lost in understanding why things work the way they do. So in the upcoming template building series of videos, I want to focus on three things. I want to, one, build a template from the ground up. So you saw what it looks like as a final product. We'll start as a fresh, clean slate, Two, I want to explain why I made some of the choices that I did. There are definitely multiple ways to go about doing this, and some people might not agree with the way I have it set up. There are plenty of different ways to get this started. Either way, I'll explain why I made those decisions. And number three, I want to give you some leeway so that you can actually make some decisions of your own. My template isn't going to work for everyone, and my template might work for anyone. All right, and so that's pretty much my template. I hope that you were able to get something out of this video, at least to see how the sound is funneled out into one track. If you like what you saw, make sure that you give this video a like and subscribe to the channel so that you can actually stay up to date with the upcoming videos on how to build this template. I also do some music theory tutorials, and I have a few more videos planned on the way. I also post just my own compositions, so check out the channel, like, subscribe, share this video with someone you think will benefit from it, and I will see you next time. Thank you.